The word of the day for February 22nd, 2022 is Guillemette. Guillemette. Or a secondary pronunciation is guillemets. Guillemets. These are French quotation marks. It's a noun, one of two marks, and they are used in French, Italian, and Russian printing to enclose quotations. What they look like are the fast forward and rewind buttons, the symbols on there. So, right, two chevrons stacked right next to each other at the start and the end of the quote. I will be pronouncing it Guillemette because I can't stop myself from doing that, and it would be distracting if I did. Because of my French training, my brain wants to pronounce all French words in the French way, but I'm most often speaking in an English context, in which case it might sound strange or disrupt the conversation. And so I have found myself in words like this a halfway point, right? This word is unfamiliar enough that I can get away with pronouncing it in both French and English. So I pronounce it Guillemette, and don't quote me on it, but you can get away with pronouncing it that way too if you so choose. The origin is kind of interesting. It is connected with the name William, and you may recall the name William is connected to a recent word of the day, will o' the wisp, which we talked about as William of the Wisp. And in French, Guillaume is the cognate for William, and Guillemette is the diminutive form of the name Guillaume. So these are much like Will or Bill, Willie, Billy in English. Guillemette works in French for Guillaume, or Guillemet, the French would pronounce it. The marks, they suspect, are named for a French printer in the 1500s, Guillaume Le Bay, but it is a misnomer because they started appearing before he was really old enough to be running a printing business. They started appearing in the 1520s, and he was only a toddler at that time. The quotes on haha are useful on dictionary.com, describing not only the usage of the Guillemette, but also some of the history of punctuation, and particularly that related to enclosing quotes, which goes back 2,300 years. Long time we've been quoting and denoting it in writing. One of the interesting things about quotations and enclosed quotes in French that I discovered sort of painfully as I was learning to read and then translate French is that in French they enclose not only the words that are said, but any of the interjections that would be used to describe how something was said or who said it. So if you're quoting somebody and then partway through you stop and you say, "She shouted," and then continue on the quote, in French, they wouldn't bother with ending the quote, then saying "she shouted," and then putting another quotation mark here, and then continuing the quote. They would just put the Guillemette at the beginning and at the end. Or I suppose for you it would be at the beginning and at the end. And so you would have to know by context that "she shouted" was not part of what was said, but it was describing how it was said. Doesn't seem like a big thing, but it's confusing when and a bit stressful when you're trying to generate an outcome, a good translation for points on an exam or something like that. When you've got something riding on it, that confusion can generate some stress. But just a different way of using quotation marks. And don't quote me on it, or should I say, don't Billy me on it. But you can pronounce this word three ways: Guillemette, Guillemet, or, as I do, Guillemette.